Hey everyone, this is Brian Holmes with the Strategic Living Podcast and BrianHolmes.com. You're listening to my great friend Stephanie O'Brien, and you are about to be moved by purpose.
You know, because when you're hardwired a certain way, it's hard to break old habits, and that's the way you're used to working. But I think one point that you made is so valid. Do you want to end up in that same place and space again? Do you want to avoid that burnout or whatever the case is by not embracing, the things that you might be a little uncomfortable with?
Are you longing to know what your purpose is? Are you on the wrong career path? Do you feel like there must be more to life? Don't worry, there's hope. It's time to be moved by purpose. Now your host, Stephanie O'Brien.
Hey, this is Stephanie O'Brien with the Moved by Purpose podcast, and this is part 2 of 6 ways to get back on track with my co-host, Career Cache. And to me, I have my TV shows that I do like watching. I mean, I watch them on my computer. And so for me, I'm like, TV can be that for some people. Mine is the internet. I mean, browsing the internet and spending time on Pinterest,
Oh, Pinterest will do it to you every time.
Oh, that's my escape.
But you need
That's my mindless activity. Yeah. And you know what? I don't feel guilty. I mean, and that's the best. My rest days are Sundays. Most of the time it's Sundays. But so if I'm finding that I'm having a tough time actually truly giving myself the total unplug, we're not even going to be brainstorming or even thinking about business, which is really tough for me. I was like, Pinterest, that's the way to do it. I can get lost in that all day and just, that's the best distractions.
But yeah, and I think sometimes you just have to mandate it. You said Sunday is your day of rest, and I try to make Sunday my day of rest as well. Sometimes I'm successful, other times not so much, but you do need to have some downtime, just a moment to simply be and exist and not actively do something related to your business.
Which, easier stated than done, but it's just one day at a time. Just small little steps can really help get the momentum.
And it's refreshing. It's hard to do, but if you actually are able to do it, it gives your brain a breather. It allows you to just kind of get some perspective and kind of step away from being so bogged down in it. And then when you come back, you're a bit refreshed.
Oh, absolutely. And even if a whole day sounds really hard, just start with the morning then. It work your way into it. It's okay. I mean, a lot of people, this goes back, the new year, you get all gung-ho about your goals. And some people just, and I'm one of these people that okay, I'm going to, fitness is a big one. I feel like so many people have fitness goals. And so they'll be like, oh, I'm going to do insanity and I'm going to follow the diet to a T and I'm never going to miss a day. Mind you, these are people that haven't worked out in years. Okay. So I'm I used to be one of and with the lessons I learned about that warm up, I couldn't even finish the entire video, and I was sore for 4 days. So much for doing it every single day and following. It's be realistic with where you are and what you have. And it's okay. I was that extreme person of oh, here's a program. They make it a no-brainer. All you got to do is just pop the video in and do it. And then just eat everything they tell you to eat and you're good. And you have total body transformation in 60 days. Yeah, well, I consistently work out pretty regularly, about 5 days a week. Even I have a hard time to making it through that program. So, and I've just learned how about we can do 3 days a week or maybe just make it through the warm up twice a week, just small little adjustments to be more realistic with where you are and work up to your ultimate goal may be to make it through that program by the end of the year. But if you go in and say, I'm going to finish this program like now without taking into account where you're currently at, that can get discouraging. And that's, I think, why a lot of people don't follow through on all of their goals, or why they get distracted or they get discouraged. And I mean, right? Because you're like, I'm going to make it 6 days a week, and you couldn't even finish one video. Do you think they're going to pop the video in tomorrow? I mean,
yeah, I think we definitely sometimes set ourselves up for failure when we're not realistic about the goals that we're setting for ourselves.
Yes. And I know you have the strength, and this is, we talked a little bit before the official recording, because you kind of have an opposite personality of me, where your strengths are my weakness, which is good.
And vice versa.
Yeah. So I can be more the person that gets just super excited about the goal and the outcome and the end result, because I'm so bottom line and result focused, that the truly assessing and breaking down and planning and seeing the reality of what's involved in getting there is something that I struggle with. Like, I have no problem writing down, to continue on the example of finishing the Insanity fitness program. I could write down complete Insanity program. But as far as like realizing what's involved in that, according to where I currently am, that's the stuff that I struggle with. Because I'll just write, it says 60 days, so complete program in 60 days. That's measurable.
And then me, on the other hand, once I see that overarching thing, okay, complete program in 60 days, and I'm like, okay, well, what does that look like? And how does that break down during my week? And, what times a day, and what's most ideal, and how does that affect this? And if I'm doing this, and I break it down to as small as details as I possibly can, which is great in some respects. But then, whereas you're somebody that is ready to kind of jump in and just jump in, I get to the point where I will analyze it to death. And like we said, analysis paralysis. And sometimes it moves me to inaction, where I don't end up doing anything. And that's a problem.
Now, like, I'm a work in progress with slowing things down and really trying to focus on the details. The details are not fun for me. And so, but I also learned that details are my friend. They're my friend. They're not my enemy. So what have you done when you find that you're kind of paralyzed and you're not taking any action? Has there anything that you have taught yourself to do to get past that?
Well, I have started trying to give myself a deadline of all this ruminating. Sometimes I'll give myself, depending on what it is, because there may be deadlines involved, but I'll give myself a solid day to do my craziness of looking at all the details, breaking it down, all that good stuff. But I give myself a timeline to make a decision one way or the other, because I've discovered even in my indecision, I'm making a decision, and it may not be the decision that I want. So I allow myself, my time to be as detailed as I want to and analyze it as much as I want to. But then I force myself to make a decision one way or the other. Uncomfortable for me, for sure. But you have to make a decision one way or the other, because a decision is going to be made. And sometimes it is the right decision. Other times it might not be, but that's just the way it is. And it's going to happen whether or not I move on anyway. So.
For those that are more wired like me, where you're like more of the ready, fire, aim.
Yeah, so what kind of tips and tricks do you have for embracing the details a bit more?
Well, it's still really painful for me. I mean, I'll just be honest, because my natural mode of operating is just taking steps. We'll figure it out along the way. Who cares if it's not perfect? We're not going to start off perfect. Anyway, I'll perfect it as I go and as I make mistakes. So like making mistakes and failure, those don't trip me up as much, which is why I can take steps. But there does come a time where that's not cute anymore. Like, it's just, in the beginning, the whole just do something that is appropriate advice. But there comes a time where you do need to grow up a little bit. And I'm not saying you're childish in this, but like, there is a discipline involved with slowing down. So for me, I have had burnout. And I've experienced burning myself out because I was in constant action and constant doing and not getting any traction because I wasn't focused, because I didn't take the time to learn the details. And so for me, I kind of just remind myself of, do I want to go there again? I don't want to go around this mountain again. Like, I want to reach the promised land. So we're gonna do what we need to do, which is focus on the details. So that's kind of my trick, is like reminding yourself of how you don't want to repeat the same pain again. You don't really want to relive it.
True
and
indeed.
So to avoid, and that's why I'm always like reassessing and learning, like to slowing down to learn and ask yourself, what did I do to get here? What kind of mistakes have I made that caused me to be in this situation? Those all really help. And then I can't do it all and I can't figure it out all on my own. So for me, helping someone else, I do, because details are a tough thing for me. It is not a natural thing for me to think that way. It really isn't. And I try not to like write it off as an excuse. I have to enlist somebody with that strength to help me. Like if it were left to me to plan and assess and evaluate, it just wouldn't be happening. So I need to ask other people in my life that are really good at planning and foreseeing things to help me plan. And so that's what I do. Because doing it on my own it's just too much of an undertaking. Some people can handle that. So like you have a really good strength. But for me, it is such a weakness of mine that I need other people. And that's okay. I mean, if you're listening and you're like, well, I've tried all that, like, it's okay to say, I can't do this. Can you do this with me? Not for me, with me.
Oh, definitely. It's definitely a work in progress on either end, because when you're hardwired a certain way, it's hard to break old habits. And, that's the way you're used to working. But I think one point that you made is so valid. Do you want to end up in that same place and space again? Do you want to avoid that burnout or whatever the case is by not embracing the things that you might be a little uncomfortable with?
So we have talked about the reason we get off track is that we lose focus. We've talked about how we need to, one, ask ourselves, what kind of things have we done that cause us to lose focus, assess there, but also like why these goals were important to us. Why did we set these out? That goes hand in hand with slowing down and relishing in what we've accomplished. You also added having a detox day, which does go with slowing down. Now it's like we want to go into reassessing our goals. You're slowing down, you're celebrating what you've accomplished, but we need to finish some things we set out to do. And that's revisiting our goals and reassessing them, and then adjusting them if we need to. And so I'm kind of combining these two steps that we have written.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
Reassessing, we've talked about, is this appropriate for the skill set I have right now?
Is it still in line with what you want to do? Because, sometimes you set goals, but over time, things may have changed.
Absolutely. That's a big one. Is it still in line with what I want to do? Yeah, and that goes with the adjusting if needed. Because things happen, or you might learn something else, or what was really important to you may not be that important anymore because something else has come up. And not that you don't always want to be pushing things off and starting new things. There does need to be a follow through.
Definitely.
But there also is, you also don't need to be so locked in on the goals you set out that you're not willing to move or budge or adjust either, because I've seen that extreme as well.
It could be, something in your actual business has changed. Maybe your strategic plan has kind of changed because of things that may have happened in the first part of the year, or you had a product or service or, a seminar that just generated a whole bunch of business that you didn't anticipate. So you might have to put some other things off. Or on the life end, something could have happened in your personal life. At the beginning of the year, you may not have been pregnant, and then now you're pregnant and you're about to have this kid. That changes things for you. Mm-hmm. Or, you may not have been engaged and all of a sudden you're getting married, whatever the case is. Or, sometimes there's illness in the family, but you have to kind of see where that goal fits in with your lifestyle and your business at this current moment. And does it still fit?
Yeah. And things that I want to use the word set us back carefully. I mean, the things that can cause us to need to readjust are not always bad things. No. Having a new addition into your family is a wonderful thing, even if it may not have been planned or expected.
That's a whole other show.
Yeah. And then, but you could have gotten even a promotion at work. That's a positive thing. But now you're having to adjust to new responsibilities. Sure. And maybe you have to travel more, or because there's a learning curve, you're working a little bit more until you adjust. So not everything is bad. Getting engaged, that's not a bad thing. No. So yeah, in all of those, and how wonderful would it be to have a successful seminar and then you have all of this business? Not a bad thing at all.
I will take it.
We have talked about how it's so widely spread that our culture sets goals at the beginning of the new year. A lot of successful people, this is the time of year they're setting goals, not the new year.
So true.
And while you're reassessing your goals and adjusting your goals, this is also time for you to start thinking about what you want to accomplish next year. Going back to visiting, what can you do differently, learning from the mistakes you've made and realizing maybe more realistically what it is you can accomplish, provided whatever your life situation is right now. And then for me, it's this is a time of reflection for me, of just what can I do differently? What is it that I really want? Every year, I think is more successful than the one before because I take time to actually reflect on mistakes I've made and lessons I've learned, and how can I take that into setting goals for the new year to really make sure that I actually accomplish them and stay focused on them.
That moment of reflection is so key, because we're usually all so wired for go mode. We don't stop. And like you said, just kind of think about, okay, where am I now with this business? And, what went well in this past few months and then this year? And what are some things that didn't go so well? And how can I adjust for the upcoming year to decrease the things that didn't go so well, do things differently, and have more successes?
So when writing down your goals for the new year, you mentioned you have to give yourself deadlines, and those are good. I mean, that's kind of a given for goals. They need to be measurable. You need to have an end date. We talked about in a perfect world how we follow the SMART model, but it's not a perfect world.
Ideally.
So. Yeah. Ideally. There's so much advice on goals, and some of it contradicts the other. And really, at the end of the day, you need to determine what works best for you, because everybody has different life situations. Everybody is so different. You don't want to get off balance, but people that have families are going to have different goals than those that are single. And so if you're listening to someone talk about goal setting that's single with no children, Their goal settings might focus more on like take more vacations, and like they can be more heavily focused on goals that just isn't a reality for someone that has the responsibility of children.
I have 3 little girls, so when I'm thinking about goal setting for any year, I know that, August, yeah, not a good month to do anything. They start school in the month of August. And also, if I'm teaching, school tends to start in August. So it's just a bad month to try to do anything. But I have to take that into consideration when I am doing my goal setting. I have to set my goals for life and business as well, and just have a clear understanding as to what's going on in both sectors to really make realistic goals for me and my lifestyle.
Absolutely. In the beginning, when you're starting a business or really anything new that you have very little experience or knowledge with, you don't know what you don't know.
Yes.
If you're listening to this and like you might be in your first year of business, or maybe you had a fitness goal and this is the first year where you've really tried to be active and consistent in exercise and keeping track of what you eat or paying attention to portion sizes, whatever the goal is, if you're feeling discouraged because you feel like you really, really missed it, this is where you need to relish in what you have accomplished. Mm-hmm. And for me, when I'm new to anything, it can feel, at least this is my personal experience, I feel like I fail more than I succeed in the beginning. And that used to really, really get to me and destroy me. And then I realized that it's failing forward, if that makes any sense. Those failures are teaching you lessons faster than success is teaching you. And it's part of the process. And it actually is. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but like you're actually making progress if you slow down and take the time to learn the lesson. Now, if you never learn the lesson, then the gift that failure was meant to give you, I mean, you don't see it as that. But for me, I had to really, really give myself grace and see the lesson and the gift in what seemed like a lack of progress or seemed like constant failure.
Oh, yeah. And you could not have said it better. Failing forward, because there really is a lot to learn from those failures. It's just another way to say a failure is kind of just lessons learned, really and truly. Because, it really gives you perspective like, okay, well, I see why that didn't quite work out. If I made changes to X, Y, and Z, then in the future, it may work out better. But a lot of people say that if you're not failing, you're not taking enough risks. Because some of the most successful people have failed in numerous ways, ginormous ways that we couldn't even imagine. But, it helped to get them to that point of success or propel their careers, propel their businesses. And while in the moment, sometimes failure does it sucks. I won't lie.
Oh, yeah.
It's not fun to see something that you work on not succeed or do well. But it's just something to kind of push you forward. So just take the lesson learned from the failure to get you to the next point in your business or your career.
Absolutely. And that just really goes in on the reflection part of it, because it's going to be hard to revisit or write down your why or reassess or adjust or start new goals without that reflection and taking time to really learn from mistakes, from why you got off track. Because each time you do this, ideally gets you closer to accomplishing your goal. So in that evaluation and reflection time, it's critical to doing this right and to doing it well.
It is.
So we covered a lot of points.
Yep.
And this was good. This was really good, because this is that time of year that you really need to be setting your goals for next year and trying to accomplish adjust the goals that you set for this year and try to, maybe they're small enough goals that you can try to finish out by the end of the year. And what can you roll into the new year? So very timely episode. And I thank you, Cache, for being my co-host for today again for this episode.
Well, thank you again for having me. We don't stop. And like you said, just kind of think about, okay, where am I now with this business? And, what went well in this past few months and then this year? And what are some things that didn't go so well? And how can I adjust for the upcoming year to decrease the things that didn't go so well, do things differently, and have more successes?
And there you have it. That was the part 2 of the 6 ways to get back on track. I highly recommend that you start your goals this time of year. Revisit, review, readjust, whatever you need to do to get back on track and regain focus, and to start setting yourself up for success next year in 2016. I can't believe that there's only a few more months left of the year and we'll already be ringing in the new year. That just, my mind is so blown. If you like this episode, make sure that you comment about what you liked. What was your favorite step? Anything else you can think of to add to the conversation? And also make sure that you subscribe, rate, and write a review. This helps us get found by more people and increases the chances of reaching more people. So your rating and review is much appreciated. And we'll talk to you guys all next week.